In the shadowed penthouse of a glittering skyscraper, where echoes of lost melodies haunt the air, billionaire Alexander Hale stares into the void, his empire built on code and conquest, yet crumbling under the weight of grief. 3 years since his wife's untimely death, he raises his autistic daughter Sophie alone, her piano notes the only bridge to her silent world. But when a mysterious music app connects them to Mia, a teacher with secrets tied to his past, a single duet sparks unforeseen harmony and chaos. What hidden truths will unravel? Stay tuned to find out. Hit subscribe, share where you're watching from and at what time, and let's uncover if music can mend the unbreakable. In the dim glow of a single desk lamp, high above the pulsating veins of the city, Alexander Hale sat motionless, his world reduced to the haunting cadence of piano keys echoing through his headphones. The notes danced like ghosts, fragile, insistent, pulling at the frayed edges of his soul. This was Clara's final composition, a melody she'd poured her fading strength into, just weeks before the cancer claimed her. 3 years had passed, yet each replay felt like a fresh wound, a reminder that empires could rise from nothing, but love, once shattered, left only echoes. Alexander's penthouse office in the Hale Dynamics Tower was a fortress of glass and steel, a testament to his relentless climb from orphan coder to billionaire titan. Screens flickered around him, displaying algorithms that powered global networks. But tonight, they were mere shadows. He closed his eyes, letting the music swell. Clara's fingers on the keys, her laughter in the pauses, her whisper of "Alex, this one's for us." But we had become him, alone in the silence that followed her departure. The final chord lingered, then faded, leaving only the hum of the city below. He ripped off the headphones, the abrupt quiet slamming into him like a wave. His reflection in the window stared back, sharp jawline etched with lines of exhaustion, eyes that once burned with ambition, now dulled by grief. At 38, Alexander Hale was the envy of the world, self-made, untouchable. Yet in the quiet hours, he was just a man haunted by what he'd lost. Clara's illness had come swiftly, a thief in the night, stealing her vitality piece by piece until all that remained was a hollow shell in a hospital bed. He'd held her hand as she slipped away, promising to protect their daughter, Sophie. But promises were easy. Living them was the torment. Sophie. The thought of her pierced through the fog. His 8-year-old daughter, a fragile miracle in a world that often felt too harsh for her. Born with autism, Sophie navigated life through a veil of sensory overload. Loud noises overwhelming her, crowds a cacophony she couldn't escape. Words came rarely to her, sparse and deliberate. But music? Music was her voice. She'd inherited Clara's gift, sitting at the grand piano in their home for hours, composing pieces that seemed to tell stories. Alexander had watched her tiny fingers fly across the keys, creating melodies that captured emotions she couldn't name, a stormy crescendo for anger, a gentle lullaby for contentment. It was as if Sophie could predict feelings, her music a prescient whisper of what was to come. But lately, even the piano had grown silent. Sophie had withdrawn further since starting school, her compositions turning somber, reflective of the isolation she felt. Alexander knew he was failing her. Buried in board meetings and mergers, he'd hired nannies and therapists, but none could bridge the gap Clara had left. He was a father in name, but in heart, he was adrift, building walls around his pain to shield her from it. A soft knock shattered the stillness. The door creaked open, and Elena stepped in, her presence a whirlwind of efficiency and unyielding resolve. Alexander's older sister by 5 years, she was the family's anchor, sharp-tongued, fiercely protective, and the only one who dared breach his solitude. Dressed in a tailored suit that mirrored his own, she carried a tablet like a weapon, her dark hair pulled into a no-nonsense bun. "Alex, you're drowning in here," she said, her voice cutting through the dimness like a spotlight. She flicked on the overhead lights, bathing the room in harsh fluorescence. Alexander winced, rubbing his temples. "I'm fine, Elena. Just reviewing some files." She arched an eyebrow, crossing her arms. "Files? Or ghosts?" She nodded toward the headphones discarded on the desk. "Clara wouldn't want this for you." Or for Sophie. He leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking under his weight. What do you know about what Clara wanted? You weren't there at the end. Elena's eyes softened, but her tone remained firm. I know she wanted you to live, not just survive. You've built an empire, Alex, but what's it worth if you're alone in it? Sophie needs more than therapists and gadgets. She needs a family, a real one. Alexander glanced away, his gaze landing on a framed photo on his desk. Him, Clara, and infant Sophie, all smiles under a sunlit sky. The image mocked him now. I'm doing the best I can. Sophie's complicated. The world isn't kind to kids like her. Exactly why you need to step out of this tower, Elena pressed, placing her tablet before him. On the screen was an app called Harmony Hub, a platform for sharing original music compositions. I found this. People upload tracks, collaborate, and even meet up for jams. Sophie could share her pieces. It might help her connect. And you too, he scoffed, pushing the tablet back. An app? I'm not putting her out there for strangers to judge. Elena didn't budge. It's anonymous if you want, but think about it. Someone who understands music might understand her. And you, Alex, you've been a widower long enough. Clara's gone, but you're still here. For Sophie's sake, try. The words hung heavy, stirring a flicker of something in his chest. Hope? Desperation? He thought of Sophie's latest composition, a melancholic tune she'd played that morning, its notes weaving a tale of loneliness that mirrored his own. What if Elena was right? What if music could bridge the chasms in their lives? Fine, he muttered, downloading the app on his phone. He selected one of Sophie's simpler pieces, a whimsical melody she'd titled Wind Whispers, and uploaded it anonymously. But if this backfires, it won't, Elena assured, squeezing his shoulder. Trust me. As she left, Alexander stared at the screen, the upload bar filling slowly. The city lights twinkled below, indifferent to his turmoil. Hours ticked by in the quiet office, the weight of the day pressing down. He was about to shut off his phone when a notification chimed, a comment on Sophie's track. This sounds like an autumn breeze carrying secrets. I'd love to add a flute harmony if you're open to it. The sender, Mia Rhythm. A profile picture showed a woman with curly hair and a warm smile, holding a flute against a backdrop of sheet music. Alexander's pulse quickened. It was innocuous, just a fellow musician reaching out. But something about it felt fateful. He typed a hesitant reply. Sure, send it over. Little did he know, Mia wasn't just any stranger. She was Clara's estranged sister, a ghost from a fractured family past, drawn to the melody like a moth to flame, seeking redemption in the notes that echoed her own buried sorrows. As Alexander hit send, the first thread of an unforeseen symphony began to weave, promising harmony or heartbreak. The morning sun pierced the city's haze like a hesitant melody, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns of Central Park. Alexander Hale had barely slept, the echo of that anonymous app exchange lingering in his mind like an unfinished chord. Mia Rhythm. Her words had been simple, inviting, yet they stirred something dormant within him, a flicker of curiosity amid the numbness. He'd replayed Clara's final piece once more before dawn, seeking solace, but it only amplified the void. Now, with Sophie by his side, he sought refuge in the open air, hoping the park's serenity might coax her back to the music that bound them. They settled on a weathered bench near the lake, the portable piano, a compact keyboard Alexander had custom-built for her, unfolded on Sophie's lap. She was a vision of quiet intensity, her small hands hovering over the keys, eyes fixed on the rippling water, as if drawing inspiration from its subtle rhythms. At 8, Sophie moved through the world with a deliberate grace, her autism shaping her interactions like an invisible score. Overwhelmed by the cacophony of school bells and chatter, she retreated into silence. Yesterday had been particularly brutal. A classmate's taunt about her weird humming had left her withdrawn, her fingers idle for hours. Alexander watched her now, heart aching. Play whatever feels right, Soph, he murmured, his voice soft against the rustle of leaves. No pressure. Sophie tilted her head, her fingers tentatively striking a few disjointed notes. A fragmented tune that mirrored her unrest, sharp highs clashing with abrupt lows. It was chaotic, raw, like a storm brewing in miniature. Alexander glanced at his phone, the app icon taunting him. Part of him wanted to delete it, to retreat back into isolation. What good could come from strangers meddling in their fragile harmony? But Elena's words echoed. For Sophie's sake, try. He sighed, pocketing the device and focused on his daughter. The notes grew bolder, weaving into a tentative melody about uncertainty, as if Sophie were composing her doubts into sound. Then a figure approached from the winding path, a woman with windswept curly hair, a flute case slung over her shoulder like a trusted companion. She moved with an effortless poise, her steps light, as if attuned to some inner rhythm. Alexander's breath caught. It was her. Mia. She paused at the edge of the bench, her eyes lighting up not on him, but on Sophie and the keyboard. That melody, she said, her voice warm and melodic, like a flute's gentle trill. It's the one from the app, the Wind Whispers. I recognized it the moment I heard it live. It's even more alive out here. Sophie froze mid-note, her wide eyes lifting to meet Mia's. Alexander tensed, ready to intervene. Strangers often overwhelmed her, their eagerness turning to awkward pity. But Mia didn't loom or prod. Instead, she knelt gracefully to Sophie's level, setting her flute case down with care. Hi there, she continued softly, addressing Sophie directly. Your piece reminds me of my little brother. He used to play like that, pouring his whole world into the keys. He was autistic too, you know. Music was how he spoke when words wouldn't come. Her tone held no condescension, only genuine kinship, as if sharing a secret language. Sophie's fingers hovered, uncertain, but she didn't pull away. Alexander observed in stunned silence, his pulse quickening. Who was this woman, appearing like a note from nowhere? Mia glanced up at him briefly, her smile tentative. I'm Mia, from the app. I hope it's okay. I was nearby and thought I'd take a chance on that harmony idea. Alexander nodded, managing a faint, of course, but his attention riveted back to Sophie. The girl studied Mia for a long moment, then nodded once, a subtle yes, and resumed her playing, the notes shifting from discord to a softer, exploratory flow, evoking a light rain pattering on leaves. Mia beamed, unzipping her case and lifting the flute to her lips. Mind if I join? Let's make it about a gentle storm. Your piano as the rain, my flute as the wind. Without waiting for more, she blew a soft, lilting harmony that intertwined with Sophie's melody, elevating the chaos into something poetic. The duet unfolded organically, Sophie's keys providing the grounded rhythm, Mia's flute dancing above like whispers of encouragement. Passers-by slowed, drawn by the impromptu magic, a jogger pausing with a smile, a couple on a bench applauding softly. Alexander felt a warmth spread through him, unfamiliar and disarming. For the first time in years, he wasn't just a spectator to Sophie's world. He was witnessing her open a door, however slightly. As the piece faded, Sophie lowered her hands, a rare spark in her eyes. Mia lowered her flute, exhaling with quiet delight. That was beautiful, she said to Sophie. You led it perfectly. What's your name? Sophie, Alexander interjected gently, finding his voice. And I'm Alexander. Thank you for that. She doesn't usually connect like this. Mia stood, brushing off her knees, her gaze warm but unintrusive. I'm a music teacher, specializing in kids like Sophie. Music has a way of bypassing the barriers, doesn't it? I lost my brother young, but his compositions taught me that. If you'd like, we could try more sometime. She directed the offer to Sophie, who surprised them both by whispering, barely audible, Ko choi hai. It was Vietnamese for you play well, a phrase Clara had taught her, slipping out like a treasured memory. Alexander's heart swelled, a mix of joy and ache. Mia's eyes widened in pleasant surprise. Thank you, Sophie. That means a lot. They exchanged numbers briefly, the conversation light. Mia sharing snippets of her work with special needs children, Alexander revealing just enough about Sophie's talents without delving into his own identity. No mentions of billions or boardrooms. Here in the park, he was simply a father grateful for a moment of connection. As Mia waved goodbye and vanished down the path, Sophie immediately began a new composition on the keyboard, a brighter tune, infused with an unexpected lightness. Alexander watched her, the weight on his shoulders lifting fractionally. This encounter felt like the start of something profound, a note that could rewrite their symphony. But as they packed up and headed home, he couldn't shake a nagging intuition. Mia's familiarity with autism, her evocative words about her brother, they hinted at depths untold. Little did he know, those depths ran straight to Clara's shadowed past, a connection that would soon unravel secrets long buried, testing the fragile harmony they'd just begun. The days following that serendipitous park encounter blurred into a rhythm Alexander hadn't known he craved, a subtle cadence of anticipation woven into his otherwise mechanical routine. Sophie's brighter composition from that afternoon had lingered in the air of their spacious home, a modernist haven perched atop a hill overlooking the city, its walls lined with Clara's old sheet music like silent guardians. Alexander found himself checking the app more frequently, not just for Sophie's sake, but for the fleeting exchanges with Mia. Her messages were thoughtful, laced with suggestions for harmonies that felt like invitations to something deeper. "Try adding a minor key shift here," she'd written once. "It gives the wind a whisper of mystery." He replied sparingly, guarding his vulnerabilities, but each interaction chipped at his isolation. It started innocently enough, a follow-up session arranged via text, Mia suggesting they meet at a quiet cafe near her studio. But Alexander, ever cautious, proposed his home instead. Safer for Sophie, he reasoned, away from prying eyes. Mia agreed without hesitation, arriving that evening with her flute and a satchel of beginner scores, her curly hair tied back in a loose ponytail that framed her expressive face. Sophie greeted her at the door with uncharacteristic eagerness, leading her straight to the grand piano in the sunlit music room, where Clara's presence still echoed in the polished ivory keys. "Ready to build on that storm?" Mia asked, settling beside Sophie on the bench. The girl nodded, her fingers already dancing across the keys in a reprise of their park melody. Alexander hovered in the doorway, arms crossed, observing as Mia unpacked her flute and joined in seamlessly. The duet evolved before his eyes, Sophie's piano grounding the piece with earthy, repetitive motifs, Mia's flute soaring above like a bird testing the winds. It was more than music, it was dialogue. Sophie's hesitations met with Mia's patient encouragements, notes blending in a way that words never could. As the session progressed, Mia guided Sophie gently, her voice a soothing undertone. "Feel the flow like breathing, in, out. Let the notes breathe with you." Sophie responded, her playing gaining confidence, the room filling with a harmony that chased away the shadows clinging to the walls. Alexander felt a pull, an urge to join, but he remained a spectator, his mind racing with questions. Who was this woman who unlocked his daughter so effortlessly? Mia caught his eye mid-phrase, offering a small smile that warmed the space between them. Over the next week, these meetings became routine, twice, then thrice weekly, shifting from the app's digital realm to tangible collaborations in the music room. Mia shared techniques tailored for neurodiverse children, visual cues on the keys, rhythmic clapping to ease sensory overload. Sophie blossomed under her tutelage, composing snippets that captured fleeting joys, a trill for a butterfly spotted in the garden, a crescendo for the thrill of a thunderstorm watched from the window. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting golden hues across the room, Mia turned to Alexander during a break. "She's gifted, you know, not just technically. Her music feels things before they happen, like intuition set to melody." He nodded, pouring tea from a nearby tray, the steam rising like unspoken thoughts. Clara was the same, Sophie's mother. She composed until the end. The words slipped out unbidden, a crack in his armor. Mia's expression softened, her fingers tracing the flute's keys absently. "I'm sorry. Losing someone like that. It leaves holes music can't always fill." She paused, her gaze distant. "My brother, Liam. He was autistic too. We lost him young, in an accident at a music event. He was performing so full of life, and then gone. I teach now to honor him, to make sure no one feels that isolation. Alexander's cup paused midair, a pang of empathy striking him. What happened? If you don't mind sharing. Mia hesitated, then continued, her voice steady but laced with old pain. A technical failure. Lights collapsed during his set. The sponsors didn't check properly. I was there, helpless. Music became my way to cope, to connect with kids like him. She didn't mention the sponsors were tied to Hale Dynamics, a detail buried in her grief, waiting like a dissonant note. Alexander felt a kinship in her loss, unaware of the looming connection. Sophie does that for me, he admitted. Her pieces, they predict moods sometimes, like she's composing our futures. As if on cue, Sophie resumed playing, but this time the melody shifted. Slow, melancholic, a minor key lament that evoked hidden sorrows. Her fingers moved with purpose, the notes swelling into a poignant dirge, as if sensing the undercurrents in the room. Mia froze, her flute halfway to her lips, eyes glistening. That's Liam's favorite scale. How did she... Sophie glanced up, her expression serene yet knowing, the music fading into silence. Alexander's heart raced. It was as if his daughter had glimpsed Mia's buried pain, translating it into sound. The moment hung heavy, broken only by Mia's soft laugh, brushing away a tear. She's special. Let's turn this into something new, a duet that heals. Together, they coaxed Sophie into a collaborative piece. Her piano as the foundation, Mia's flute weaving hope through the melancholy, Alexander finally joining with tentative claps for rhythm. The first true duet emerged, raw, imperfect, but alive with possibility. Laughter followed as Alexander fumbled a beat, Mia teasing him gently. You're a natural at enthusiasm. For the first time, the house felt full, not just of sound, but of shared vulnerability. Yet as the evening waned and Mia prepared to leave, Alexander's phone buzzed. A call from Victor, his uncle and Hale Dynamics' relentless shareholder. Alex, rumors are swirling about some music teacher in your life. The board's uneasy. You're a CEO, not a sentimental fool. Handle it, or I will. Alexander pocketed the device, masking his irritation with a farewell smile. Mia departed with a wave, unaware of the brewing storm, while Sophie played a final, optimistic flourish, as if foretelling trials ahead. That night, alone in his study, Alexander replayed the duet in his mind, the harmony a balm against Victor's threats. But doubts crept in. Mia's story, Sophie's prescient music, they hinted at layers yet uncovered. As he drifted to sleep, the city lights flickering like unresolved chords, he wondered if this budding symphony could withstand the discord to come. The dissonant ring of Victor's call echoed in Alexander's mind long after the line went dead, a jarring counterpoint to the harmonious duet that had just filled his home. He stood in the music room's lingering warmth, watching Sophie doodle absent-mindedly on a sheet of blank score paper, her earlier melody of optimism now a faint memory. Mia had left with her usual grace, oblivious to the gathering clouds, but Alexander felt the storm brewing, an undercurrent of unease that Sophie's prescient music had hinted at. Rumors, Victor had snarled, as if Alexander's personal life were a line item on a balance sheet. The board's whispers were already circulating. A mysterious music teacher infiltrating the Hale Fortress, potentially a liability in their cutthroat world of tech dominance. By morning, the whispers had erupted into a tempest. Alexander's phone buzzed incessantly with alerts. Tabloid headlines splashed across screens. Billionaire Hale's secret muse, teacher or opportunist. Grainy photos from their park meeting had surfaced, capturing Mia kneeling beside Sophie, flute in hand, with captions insinuating exploitation. Is she using the child to get to the fortune? One article sneered, dredging up vague accusations of Mia's unstable past in education circles. Alexander's jaw clenched as he scrolled in his office, the tower's panoramic views mocking his sudden vulnerability. This wasn't just gossip. It was a calculated leak, Victor's fingerprints all over it, aiming to destabilize him before the next shareholder meeting. Mia's call came mid-morning, her voice strained over the line. Alex, parents are pulling their kids from my classes. They think I'm chasing headlines, Or worse, he could hear the hurt beneath her composure, the way her words faltered like a missed note. Her studio, a haven for children like Liam, was crumbling under scrutiny. Alexander paced, fury coiling in his chest. This is my fault. The media hounds me, always have. We need to get away, clear the air. The idea struck like a thunderclap. Vienna, the city of symphonies, where Clara had once dreamed of taking Sophie. A small festival for young talents was underway. It could be their escape, a chance for Sophie to shine without the glare. Mia hesitated, but Sophie's excitement sealed it. The girl had already begun composing a new piece, her fingers flying across the keys in frantic bursts, the melody turbulent, evoking swirling winds and crashing waves. Con bao, Sophie whispered in Vietnamese, labeling the score with careful letters. The storm. Alexander booked the private jet that afternoon, whisking them away under the cover of dusk. As the plane ascended, leaving the city's clamor below, Sophie played her portable keyboard softly, the notes rising and falling like turbulent air currents. Mia sat across, flute idle in her lap, her eyes shadowed. This feels like running, she murmured. Alexander reached for her hand. It's regrouping. For Sophie. But inside, doubts swirled. Victor's threats loomed, and Mia's untold depths nagged at him. Vienna welcomed them with crisp autumn air and cobblestone streets alive with the hum of violins from open windows. They checked into a discreet hotel overlooking the Danube, its suites adorned with antique instruments that delighted Sophie. The festival was intimate, a gathering of prodigious children in a historic hall, and Sophie was slated for a brief showcase. That first night they wandered the Prater, the Ferris wheel's lights twinkling like stars. But tension simmered. Mia seemed distant, her flute performances in the park subdued, as if carrying an unseen burden. The revelation came on their second evening, during an impromptu rehearsal in the hotel's private salon. Sophie played The Storm with fervor, the piano thundering through buildups of intensity, notes crashing like waves against rocks. Mia joined haltingly, her flute adding ethereal highs that cut through the chaos. But midway she faltered, lowering the instrument, tears glistening. I can't do this anymore, she whispered, voice breaking. Alexander froze. Mia, what? She turned to him, eyes raw with anguish. I'm not just a teacher, Alex. I'm Clara's sister, her estranged younger sister. The words landed like a fortissimo crash, shattering the room's fragile peace. Alexander recoiled, memories flooding. Clara's vague mentions of a family rift, a sibling she'd cut ties with over old grievances. Something about inheritance disputes and betrayals. Why now? Why us? He demanded, his voice a low rumble. Mia sank into a chair, Sophie pausing her playing to watch with wide, perceptive eyes. Clara wrote to me before she died. She wanted me to know about Sophie, to watch over her if she couldn't. I found you through the app. Your upload matched her style. I came to make amends, to honor her. But then, I fell into this, into you. Her confession spilled forth, laced with sobs. And Liam, my brother. The accident that killed him? It was at an event sponsored by Hail Dynamics. The faulty equipment you funded. I blamed you for years, but meeting Sophie, it changed everything. Alexander's world tilted, the storm Sophie had composed manifesting in his chest. Betrayal surged. Had this all been a ploy for revenge or closure? He paced, fists clenched, the city's distant church bells tolling like accusations. You knew, all this time, Mia nodded, pleading. I didn't plan to fall in love with your life. With her. She gestured to Sophie, who resumed playing softly. A new variation, the storm's fury yielding to resolving chords, as if urging reconciliation. The argument raged in hushed tones, Alexander grappling with shock and guilt over the forgotten sponsorship. A minor event he'd approved without oversight, a tragic oversight buried in corporate ledgers. I didn't know, he insisted, voice cracking. God, Mia, if I'd known. But Sophie intervened, her music swelling into a theme of forgiveness, notes bridging the chasm with insistent grace. Mia reached out, touching his arm. We can rewrite this, like a duet. imperfect but together. As the night deepened, the storm within began to subside, Sophie's melody a beacon. They didn't resolve everything, but in that Viennese salon, amid the echoes of revelation, a fragile truce formed. Alexander held Mia as she wept, Sophie's final notes fading into hopeful silence. Yet as they prepared to return home, he knew the real tempest awaited. Victor's machinations, the unresolved ties to Clara's past. The journey back would test their nascent symphony, notes of trust hanging in precarious balance. The flight back from Vienna sliced through the clouds like a blade through quiet, but the revelations hung heavy as unfinished harmonies in Alexander's thoughts. Mia sat opposite in the aisle, her flute case gripped like a barrier, while Sophie hummed gently to herself, her portable keyboard packed away, but her fingers drumming unseen keys on the armrest. The tentative peace they had built in that Viennese salon endured for the moment, but Alexander sensed the true surge lay ahead on home ground. Victor's schemes were no far-off rumble. They were an approaching whirlwind, poised to disrupt all. As the jet dropped toward the sparkling expanse of the city, Sophie's humming evolved into an uplifting theme, hopeful and climbing, as if her music were already composing their resistance. They touched down under night's veil, easing into the Hale estate undetected. But the gale struck at first light. Alexander's inbox flooded with pressing notices from the board. Victor had called an urgent session, alleging leadership unsteadiness, stoked by the exposed images and murmurs of Mia's dubious intentions. One message, sharp in its courtesy, included a file on Mia, her separation from Clara, Liam's fatal mishap, even Hale Dynamics' indirect involvement in the funding. This woman poses a risk, Victor had noted personally. Resolve it or forfeit command. Alexander closed his laptop with force, anger surging. Mia, catching the words from the kitchen where she had made breakfast with Sophie, grew pale. I ought to leave, she said softly, her tone descending. I'm shattering your existence. No, Alexander replied resolutely, drawing her near. Sophie's gaze shifted between them, her tiny hands tightening. Then wordlessly, the child hurried to the piano, her fingers unleashing a fresh work. Rising note, she marked it afterward, the ascending tone. The tune ascended boldly, scales soaring in victorious bounds, woven with a steadfast hope that appeared to foresee solidarity amid turmoil. It was as though Sophie were compelling them to remain, her music a vision of endurance. Mia knelt next to her, tears marking her face. How does she sense it? She whispered. Alexander came over, his hand on Sophie's shoulder. She always does. We're not fleeing any longer. Inspired, Alexander planned a response, not in conference rooms but via the shared tongue they all spoke. Music. He suggested a public show at a nearby venue, presented as a benefit for programs aiding neurodiverse arts, but really a platform to reclaim their tale. We'll display recovery, not controversy, he informed Mia. She agreed, though uncertainty clouded her gaze. Planning filled the days. Sophie rehearsing her storm composition with intense focus, Mia polishing flute parts, and Alexander, clumsily, taking up a guitar for the first time since university, his fingers fumbling strings in amusing mishaps. You're like a bear attempting a dance, Mia joked one afternoon, giggles rising as he botched a basic chord. The levity eased the strain, a short break in the mounting gale, pulling them tighter in mutual openness. The evening of the show came beneath a sky marred by looming rain, the venue filled with allies, doubters, and Hale Dynamics associates Victor had surely positioned. Behind the scenes, Sophie toyed with her outfit, sensory strain looming, but Mia soothed her with a soft flute melody, a personal duet that steadied the child's anxiety. Alexander glanced past the drape, seeing Victor in the prime seats, his expression one of confident expectation. This concludes tonight, Alexander whispered, advancing onto the platform with Mia and Sophie following. The illumination softened, and Sophie started solo, her piano tones climbing in rising note. A bold rise that saturated the space with unwavering aspiration. The crowd leaned in, enchanted by the youngster's pure skill, her fingers crafting an auditory vista of victory over hardship. Mia blended in fluidly, her flute interlacing airy peaks that enhanced the ascent, transforming solo threads into a cohesive power. Alexander contributed his guitar, Awkward initially, a mismatched pluck drawing chuckles. But he discovered his flow, the group's synergy converting flaws into something deeply relatable. Chuckles spread through the assembly as Alexander overdid a wrong tone for humor, Mia eyeing him with mock exasperation. It was an instant of lightness that made them real, breaking the gossip facade. But Victor's meddling arrived during a short break, as foreseen. In the pause, he stood, mic seized, unbidden, his words resounding. Everyone, this is delightful, but remember the realities. Alexander Hale leads us as CEO, not a singer. This interruption endangers our domain. Whispers circulated, the atmosphere changing like a shift to a somber key. Alexander moved ahead, guitar set aside. This isn't an interruption, he rebutted, tone firm. This is kin. Sophie and Mia, they're my realm now. Hale Dynamics succeeds on novelty, not seclusion. If you seek a marionette, look elsewhere. I'm finished protecting my core. The venue grew taut, but Mia spoke next, her statement a clear summons. I arrived for resolution, my sibling Clara's heritage, but I remain for affection and pardon. She disclosed the mishaps linked to Hale, her tone fracturing, but then faced Alexander. It wasn't entirely your fault. We construct ahead. The admission lingered, unpolished in charge. The gathering hushed. Sophie, detecting the turn, burst into the work's peak, a blend of climbing and descending tones, falling note dropping in, relieving liberation, settling the strain into a balanced end. The music expanded, tones tumbling like a gale giving way to mourning, representing a drop from shadow into glow. Cheers broke out, hesitant at first, then roaring, guardians of autistic youngsters rising, moisture in their gazes. Even certain board affiliates approving with nods. Victor's features contorted in loss. He exited in fury, his warnings punctuated. Behind the curtain, Mia hugged Alexander, murmuring, "We achieved it." Sophie glowed, her music's forecast realized. But as they departed into the rain-glazed evening, Alexander understood this was no close. Victor's withdrawal was strategic, the profounder tones of harmony and business conflicts still to resonate. Sophie's concluding hum, a persistent determination, vowed more ascents and descents forthcoming. The rain-glazed streets glistened under the street lamps as Alexander, Mia, and Sophie emerged from the venue, the echoes of applause still ringing in their ear like a triumphant finale. Victor's furious exit had been a momentary victory, his silhouette vanishing into the downpour like a discordant note resolved. But Alexander knew better than to declare the symphony complete. The board's murmurs might quiet for now, the performance's raw honesty having swayed hearts and headlines alike, but corporate shadows lingered. Sophie's concluding hum, persistent and determined, trailed them home, a subtle prelude to the everyday battles that awaited, where true harmony wasn't won on stages, but forged in the quiet rhythms of life. In the weeks that followed, with public scrutiny ebbing like a receding tide, they turned inward, confronting the subtler storms of daily existence. Sophie returned to school, her backpack heavier with the weight of newfound confidence from the show, yet the playground proved a harsher arena. Whispers followed her. That weird girl with the piano noises, a freckled boy named Jake, sneered one recess, mimicking her humming with exaggerated mockery. The taunt stung, Sophie's fingers curling into fists as she retreated to a corner bench, her music silenced by the cruelty of peers who couldn't comprehend her world. Alexander learned of it that afternoon, Sophie's teacher calling with concern. "She's withdrawn again," the voice said. Rage flared in him, a paternal storm, but Mia placed a calming hand on his arm. "Let me handle this. Music can bridge where words fail." The next day, Mia arrived at the school unannounced, flute case in tow, her presence a gentle intrusion into the structured chaos of classrooms. With the principal's reluctant nod, she organized an impromptu music workshop in the auditorium, framing it as an extension of the charity event. Children gathered curiously, Sophie at the front, her eyes lighting up as Mia unpacked instruments, simple recorders and shakers for all. "Music isn't about being perfect," Mia began, her voice warm and inclusive. "It's about feeling. Sophie here, she's a master at that." She handed Sophie a small flute, mirroring her own, and together they demonstrated a basic duet, a light, playful tune that evoked birds in flight. The class joined tentatively, notes clashing in delightful discord at first, but Mia guided them with patience, turning mishaps into laughter. Jake, the bully, hung back, arms crossed, but curiosity won. He accepted a recorder, blowing hesitant puffs. Sophie, sensing his unease, approached quietly, demonstrating a simple scale on her flute. No words, just demonstration, her fingers patient on the holes. Jake mimicked, fumbling, but when he nailed a clear note, Sophie's rare smile emerged, a beacon of acceptance. The room shifted, giggles turned to genuine engagement. By session's end, Jake mumbled to Sophie, "You play really well. Sorry for, you know." It was a raw admission, his freckled cheeks flushing, but authentic, a boy's first step toward empathy. Mia watched, tears pricking her eyes as Sophie nodded, the rift mending in silent harmony. Emboldened by this small triumph, Alexander began shedding his own barriers, learning to relinquish the iron control that had defined his empire. Evenings transformed into family jam sessions in the music room, where he traded boardroom battles for guitar strums, his once rigid hands loosening with each chord. One crisp autumn night, as logs crackled in the fireplace, casting flickering shadows on the walls, he set aside the instrument and turned to Mia. Sophie dozed nearby, her head on a cushion, flute clutched like a talisman. "You've brought sound back to my life," Alexander confessed, his voice low and vulnerable. "Not just music, real harmony. I love you, Mia, for seeing us, for staying through the storm." Her eyes met his, glistening. "And I love you, for letting me in, for forgiving the past." Their kiss was tender, a crescendo of shared souls, sealing the bond that had grown from notes to something eternal. Yet the corporate undercurrents refused to fade entirely. The annual Hail Dynamics Charity Gala loomed, a glittering affair of velvet gowns and veiled power plays, where Victor plotted his resurgence. Invitations arrived like summons, the event a battlefield disguised as benevolence. Alexander debated skipping it, but Mia urged otherwise. Show them we're unbreakable. For Sophie. They attended as a united front, Sophie in a simple dress, with her portable piano slung like a backpack, her presence a quiet defiance. The ballroom pulsed with opulence, crystal chandeliers casting diamond fractals, whispers swirling like off-key violins. Victor cornered them early, his smile a predator's guise. Charming display at the concert, nephew. But this? He gestured dismissively at Mia. A music teacher in our circles? She's out of tune with our legacy. His words dripped venom, eyes flicking to Sophie as if she were an inconvenient prop. Alexander's fist tightened, but before he could retort, Sophie stepped forward, unfolding her keyboard on a nearby table. Without preamble, she launched into a new composition, Harmony of the Soul, she later named it, a piece that wove rising motifs from her earlier works with falling resolutions, threads of flute-like highs evoking Mia's influence, and grounded bass notes mirroring Alexander's strength. The melody filled the room, notes cascading like a spiritual invocation, silencing chatter and drawing guests closer. It spoke of fractures mended, souls intertwined, raw, transcendent, pulling at heartstrings with its authenticity. Victor's face paled, his barbs forgotten as the crowd murmured in awe. Even hardened executives paused, glasses mid-sip, touched by the child's unfiltered genius. As the final chord resonated, applause thundered, Victor slinking away in defeat, his power play harmonized into irrelevance. Mia whispered to Alexander, "This is our team." He pulled them both close, feeling the new flow, a symphony without end, where every note, high or low, contributed to the whole. In the gala's aftermath, as they drove home under a starlit sky, Sophie's soft hum resumed, a bridge to whatever lay ahead. The battles weren't over, Victor's grudges simmered, life's tempos ever-changing. But in this moment, their souls resonated in perfect accord, ready for the eternal composition to unfold. The starlit drive home from the gala felt like a gentle decrescendo, the night's triumphs settling into a profound, resonant calm that enveloped Alexander, Mia, and Sophie like a warm coda. Victor's defeat lingered in the air, a silenced antagonist whose schemes had crumbled under the weight of Sophie's unyielding melody. But Alexander sensed this was merely the bridge to a new movement, where the true essence of their harmony would unfold not in grand spectacles, but in the intimate orchestration of everyday life. Sophie's soft hum accompanied them through the winding roads, a thread of continuity weaving past storms into future serenades, promising that their symphony, once fractured, was now eternally composed. In the months that followed, as autumn surrendered to winter's crisp embrace, their home transformed into a living score, a place where notes of routine blended with spontaneous crescendos of joy. Mornings dawned with Sophie's piano awakening the household, her fingers crafting dawn choruses that mirrored the rising sun filtering through frost-laced windows. Alexander, once chained to his tower of glass and steel, delegated more at Hale Dynamics, carving space for family amid the empire's demands. Victor, humbled by the galla's fallout and the board's shifting allegiance, retreated into obscurity, his resignation letter a final, grudging acknowledgement that innovation thrived on heart as much as hardware. The company flourished under Alexander's renewed vision, human-centered tech, inspired by Sophie's unique perspective, proving that vulnerability was no weakness, but a conductor's baton. Mia integrated seamlessly, her flute lessons evolving into collaborative creations that filled the house with layered sounds. Together they nurtured Sophie's burgeoning album, Music of Us, a collection of her compositions interwoven with Mia's harmonies and Alexander's tentative guitar accents. Each track told a chapter of their journey, stormy allegros for trials overcome, tender adagios for moments of forgiveness, and vivacious scherzos for laughter shared. Sophie poured her soul into it, her autism no barrier but a lens amplifying emotion. Predictive melodies that anticipated moods, turning the album into a sonic tapestry of healing. "This is our story," Mia said one evening, as they reviewed a track by the fireside, Sophie's head resting on her lap. Alexander nodded, his hand entwining with Mia's. "And it's far from over." The album's culmination arrived with Mia's charity concert, a modest yet momentous event at a historic theater, dedicated to supporting music therapy for neurodiverse children. Invitations went out quietly, drawing a crowd of allies, parents touched by Sophie's story, educators inspired by Mia's work, even former skeptics from Hale's circles. The theater buzzed with anticipation as the lights dimmed, the stage adorned with simple spotlights and a grand piano at center. Sophie took her place first, poised and radiant, her small frame commanding the space. She began with a solo from the album, a sweeping overture that evoked their beginnings, notes rising like whispers from the park encounter, building to the revelations in Vienna. Mia joined next, her flute dancing in counterpoint, adding layers of depth that spoke of loss and rediscovery. Alexander stepped in midway, guitar in hand, his playing steadier now, a testament to growth. The trio's synergy was electric. Sophie's piano as the heartbeat, Mia's flute the breath, Alexander's strings the steady pulse. The audience leaned forward, entranced as tracks unfolded. The storm reimagined with triumphant resolution, rising and falling notes, evoking their trials, and a new finale, eternal harmony, where Sophie's predictive gift shone brightest, notes foretelling endless unity. Applause swelled midway through, but they pressed on, the music a living entity, binding performers and listeners in shared catharsis. Mid-concert, a poignant interlude. Mia addressed the crowd, voice steady. "This isn't just performance, it's proof that music mends. For my brother Liam, for Clara, for every soul who feels unheard." Tears flowed freely among the seats, parents clutching hands, children wide-eyed. Sophie, in a rare verbal flourish, whispered into the mic, "For family." The finale erupted in a grand fusion, instruments blending into a symphonic climax that left the theater vibrating. Standing ovation followed, thunderous and heartfelt, the album's release announced to cheers. Backstage, embraces abounded. Alexander lifting Sophie high, Mia's kiss sealing the night's magic. With Victor's shadow fully lifted, his shares sold, the company stabilized under ethical leadership. Alexander and Mia chose a simple wedding in spring, under blooming cherry trees in their garden. No opulence, just close friends, Elena officiating with teary pride. Sophie served as lead musician, her flute and piano duet with Mia a vow and melody. Vows exchanged were poetic. In every note, high or low, I choose you, Alexander said, Mia echoing with, our harmony forever. Rings slipped on amid laughter and tears, Sophie's composition playing softly, a new beginning etched in sound. Years blurred into a timeless refrain, but one memory endured. A return to Vienna, the family strolling the Danube's banks under a golden sunset. Sophie, now taller, played her flute freely, notes mingling with the river's murmur. Alexander and Mia walked hand in hand, their love a steady bass line underpinning it all. This isn't an end, Mia murmured, echoing their past whispers. It's an eternal symphony. Alexander smiled, pulling them close as Sophie's melody soared, predictive, profound, promising infinite movements ahead. In that moment, they had crafted not just a life, but a world where every discord resolved into beauty, every silence filled with soulful resonance. The music played on, unending. And so, in the quiet cadence of their shared melody, Alexander, Mia, and Sophie discovered that life's greatest symphony isn't played on stages or scripted in boardrooms. It's composed in the heart, note by note, through love's enduring rhythm. What did this tale stir in you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Did it remind you of your own harmonies or perhaps a discord waiting to resolve? Thank you for joining us on this journey. Your presence makes the music richer. Until next time, may your world resonate with endless possibility. Stay tuned.